Shalom uvracha, everyone. Rabbi Steve Texon, Cuban Hebrew congregation. Shabbat Chanukah, Parashat Vayeshev. There's a beautiful connection. First of all, Parashat Vayeshev and the story of Joseph and his brothers. Jose y sus hermanos is always read either on the Shabbat before Hanukkah or, as is the case this year, on Hanukkah, the first days of Hanukkah. It's the story that initiated the whole saga of Israel in Egypt. The descent into Egypt, the slavery in Egypt, and God's great redemption of the Jewish people from Egypt. And while the hatred and the jealousy of Joseph's brothers toward him did not actually cause the oppression and the descent into Egypt, it facilitated it, because it was already foretold to Abraham that the Jewish people would be enslaved, but ultimately would be redeemed and returned to the land of Israel. The covenant between the pieces, between God and Abraham, earlier in Bereshit. So the story of Joseph and his brothers facilitated this divine plan. Well, the rabbis ask, why did it have to be so severe? 400 years of slavery before they would be redeemed? Yes, this was the crucible in which the Jewish people would be tested and prepared to receive the Torah at Sinai. A long period, a long suffering, but ultimate redemption. Now, we have discussed many times that the book of Bereshit is all about the family, the development of the family and all the problems of the family. Sibling rivalry, deception, parental favoritism, all the issues that can possibly occur in the family are played out in Bereshit. And this week's Parashat Vayeshev sets in motion the whole saga of Jewish destiny, initiated by the sibling rivalry, the parental favoritism of Jacob for Joseph, and the descent into Egypt through Yosef being sold as a slave to a passing Ishmaelite caravan. And the rabbis discuss that even though the brothers didn't physically put him on the caravan, while they were eating and Joseph was in the pit, it was the Midianites that dragged him out of the pit and facilitated the sale to the Ishmaelites. So while the brothers themselves didn't physically take him out of the pit and put him on the caravan, they made it all possible. Again, they facilitated the divine plan. And we all know that in the end, jumping ahead, when Joseph is reconciled with the brothers and he reveals his identity. He says to them all, don't start fighting among each other. That this all happened. All these terrible events. It was God's plan that I should, after being sold into slavery, rise to power and become a potentate of Egypt. We could almost describe the final chapters of Bereshit as from pit to potentate, from the depths of despair to great success, great wealth, great power. Talking about divine plan, we cannot escape the incredible concept of karma. What goes around comes around, and midah keneged midah, measure for measure. We talked about deception in Bereshit. The way that Jacob deceived Isaac, he was paid back by the deception visited upon him by Laban, tricking him into marrying Leah and not Rachel. The deception continues. Even with Joseph, how Reuben, who saved Joseph from death, not to be killed, rather to be cast into the pit, and Yehuda, the great noble Yehuda, who deceived his father by taking the coat, dipping it in goat's blood to deceive Jacob, his father, that Joseph was murdered, or killed, by a wild beast. Murdered by a wild beast. Deception with the goat's blood. Karma repeats. Even in the side episode in Vayeshev this week of Yehuda and his daughter-in-law Tamar, we see karma playing out again. Because in the story, Tamar, his daughter-in-law, was left childless because the three sons of Yehuda would not give her children. But Tamar knew that she was destined to have a child from the family of Yehuda, and she disguised herself as a harlot and seduced Yehuda, and with Yehuda had the son Peretz, who was the ancestor of King David, the forerunner of the Mashiach. Tamar deceived Yehuda, dressing up as a harlot and lying with him and having a child. So what is the karma? As Yehuda dipped the coat in the blood of the goat to fool Yaakov, Tamar revealed that Yehuda had slept with her, even though he denied it, because she produced the items that Yehuda had left in the tent when he had relations with Tamar. Even there's the karma. But what's the bigger picture? All of these episodes lead to the redemption from Egypt, in spite of the slavery, in spite of the suffering, as I mentioned. Now, how do we relate this to Hanukkah and the story of Joseph and the brothers and Yaakov and Yosef? Because Yaakov and Yosef are almost one in character and in determination perseverance, and moral integrity. At the beginning of the parasha it says, Eile toldot Yaakov, Yosef ben 17 shana haya ro'eh et achiv batzon. The names are almost joined together. Yaakov, Yosef, like Yitzchak and Avraham. In this case, the perseverance and the characters of Yaakov and Yosef are almost identical. They both wanted to change and repair the world. And they faced tremendous odds all through their lives. Just like Matityahu and his sons, particularly Yehuda HaMaccabee, had to face the heathen world and retain Judaism and persevere with their faith in order to defeat anti-Semitism and to save the Holy Temple from destruction and rededicate it and drive out the evil forces of the Syrian Greek overwhelming army. So it's so appropriate that every year Vayeshev and Hanukkah coincide. The greatest miracle was the military victory of the small against overwhelming odds, the weak against the mighty. Even more than the cruse of oil lasting for the 8 days, this was a minor occurrence, although beautiful, extremely beautiful in concept, but the light had to be lit every day anyway in the Holy Temple. It wasn't supposed to last 8 days, but there was a supply to last, and it became a way of distracting from the military victory, because Jewish people don't like to emphasize military might over spiritual might. So the beautiful concept of the lights and the Festival of Lights remains, and we celebrate Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights, because it was the light of hope, the light of determination, the light of strength. Ki lo v'chayil, v'lo b'choach, ki im beruchi, Amar Hashem. It is my spirit, God tells the prophet in the Haftorah of this week, that has sustained you and will sustain the Jewish people, Lanetzach, to be victorious over her enemies. And let us celebrate Hanukkah and all of our holidays, whether minor or major, in peace and security and good health. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Chag Chanukah Sameach.